The morning show Lorraine was supposed to have a calm, light-hearted interview with British actor Colin Firth, known for his gentlemanly charm and classic roles in Pride and Prejudice and The King's Speech. But what began as a friendly chat quickly spiraled into one of the most unexpected on-air clashes in the show's history. Lorraine Kelly welcomed Colin with her usual warmth. "Colin, it's such a pleasure to have you back. You've been away from interviews for quite a while. How have you been keeping yourself busy?" Colin smiled politely, his hands folded on his lap. "Just focusing on some quiet work, Lorraine. Writing a little, reading more, and trying to live a normal life away from cameras." The audience chuckled softly, but Lorraine pressed further. "That's interesting, especially since there have been rumors that you've turned down several big Hollywood roles recently. Some even say you've grown tired of fame altogether." Colin's expression changed slightly. "Rumors," he said evenly, "are what the media thrives on. But no, I haven't grown tired of my work. I've just grown more selective about what I want to represent." Lorraine smiled, but it had a hint of tension. "Selective, yes, but some of your fans feel disappointed. They think you're distancing yourself from the audience that made you who you are." The studio air shifted. Colin leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "With respect, Lorraine, I think that's a rather unfair way to put it. Fans don't define an artist's worth by constant visibility. Sometimes, stepping back is part of preserving what's real." The audience murmured. Lorraine, sensing drama, didn't let go. "But don't you think you owe it to your fans to be present? To stay connected? You're one of Britain's most beloved stars. People expect." Colin interrupted gently but sharply, "People expect too much sometimes. I'm not a product to be consumed endlessly. I'm a person, Lorraine. I think we all need to remember that." There was a sudden silence. Lorraine blinked, clearly taken aback. "Colin, I didn't mean to offend you. I just think there's a responsibility that comes with fame." "Responsibility," Colin repeated, now visibly frustrated. "Responsibility is being honest, not pretending to be available every minute of the day for public entertainment." The tension was thick. The crew could feel it. Lorraine tried to steer the conversation back to neutral ground. "All right, let's talk about your upcoming film then." But Colin wasn't done. "You know, Lorraine, it's interviews like this that make actors retreat. We come here to talk about our work, and end up having to justify our existence." The audience gasped softly. Lorraine's smile had completely faded now. "Colin, perhaps we should take a short break." He leaned back, sighing. "Maybe that's best." The cameras cut abruptly to commercials. What happened next was never meant to be seen by viewers, but crew members later whispered that Colin stood up, removed his microphone, and said quietly, "I think I'll pass on finishing this one." When the show returned, Lorraine appeared flustered but composed. "We had a little mix-up during the break," she said lightly. "Colin Firth has left early, but we wish him all the best." But the internet exploded within minutes. Clips of the exchange spread across social media, with hashtags like #ColinFirthOnLorraine and #FirthVsLorraine trending worldwide. Fans were divided. Some praised Colin for speaking his truth, while others criticized him for being too sensitive. Lorraine's supporters defended her, saying she was only doing her job as a host. That evening, Colin released a brief statement through his publicist. "Greater than, I hold great respect for Lorraine Kelly and her work. Our conversation today became more emotional than I expected. I wish her and her audience nothing but goodwill." Lorraine, on her part, addressed it the next day. "Sometimes, even the calmest conversations can turn into important discussions about fame, pressure, and privacy. I have immense respect for Colin and his honesty. But the damage, and fascination, were already done." Viewers began debating whether fame had gone too far, whether celebrities deserved privacy, and whether talk shows sometimes pushed too hard. One thing was certain: Colin Firth's calm demeanor had finally cracked, and for once, the world saw not the polished gentleman from The King's Speech, but a man tired of being constantly misunderstood. To many, it wasn't a scandal, it was a revelation. And to others, it was proof that even the most composed stars could lose their cool when their truth was questioned. The day after the incident, headlines across Britain were ablaze with every possible spin on the story. Colin Firth storms off Lorraine. Gentleman number more, Colin loses his cool. Lorraine Kelly left speechless by Firth outburst. It was the kind of frenzy Colin had spent his entire career avoiding. By afternoon, his phone was flooded with messages from friends, colleagues, and journalists seeking comments. But he ignored them all. He'd said what he meant, even if it hadn't come out perfectly. At home in his quiet London townhouse, Colin sat by the fireplace, sipping tea, replaying the conversation in his head. He wasn't angry anymore, just disappointed. Why does every honest word have to become a headline? He muttered to himself. Meanwhile, Lorraine's team at ITV was in full damage control mode. The producers debated whether to release the full, unedited footage to show the context of the argument. Lorraine, however, wanted to take a different approach. I don't want to embarrass him, she told her staff. Colin's a good man. It was an emotional moment, nothing more. Let's not turn this into a circus. But the internet had already done that for her. Memes flooded social media, clips of Colin saying, "I'm not a product to be consumed," were being shared millions of times, often accompanied by sarcastic captions like, "Mr. Darcy's meltdown," or, "The King loses his speech." 3 days later, Colin broke his silence. He appeared on a BBC radio show to clarify his side of the story. "I don't believe in shouting matches on live television," he said calmly. "Lorraine and I had a difference of perspective. She does her job with great passion, and so do I. I simply wish our conversation had gone differently." That measured tone earned him praise again. Fans began posting messages of support. Colin Firth just reminded everyone that celebrities are human. Respect to Colin for standing up for privacy. Lorraine, too, decided to address the topic openly on her next show. Sitting alone on the couch, she looked into the camera and said with sincerity, "I want to talk about something that's been on everyone's mind. My conversation with Colin Firth didn't go the way I intended. I've admired him for years, and I think we both just got caught up in the moment. No hard feelings at all." That honesty softened public opinion. But what really surprised everyone was what came next. A week later, Lorraine's producers received a short email from Colin's assistant. "Greater than, Mr. Firth would like to return to the program for a brief chat, if you're open to it." Lorraine read it twice, smiling. "Of course," she said immediately. But this time, no scripts, no tension, just a genuine conversation. When Colin returned to the studio, there was no audience, just 2 chairs, 2 mugs of tea, and 2 professionals ready to make peace. "Welcome back, Colin," Lorraine said softly. "Thank you, Lorraine. I wasn't sure you'd have me again." "Oh, don't be silly," she laughed. "If we kicked off every guest who argued with me, I'd have an empty studio." They both chuckled, and the atmosphere was instantly warmer. Lorraine continued, "I think our last chat touched a nerve, not just for us, but for a lot of people watching. Maybe it opened a conversation about what fame does to people." Colin nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, I think sometimes people forget that actors are not just characters they see on screen. We're vulnerable, too. Sometimes, we just need space to breathe." "That's fair," Lorraine said, smiling. "And for what it's worth, I admire you even more now, for being honest." The two ended the interview with a handshake and a small hug. Cameras captured the moment as the audience watching from home applauded. By the end of the week, the headlines had changed their tune. Colin Firth and Lorraine Kelly make amends. From clash to conversation, a lesson in grace. The controversy that had threatened to tarnish Colin's reputation ended up doing the opposite. It reminded the world why he was beloved in the first place. In an age of loud scandals and fake apologies, he had chosen sincerity over showmanship. And Lorraine, ever the professional, had turned conflict into understanding. As the credits rolled that day, Lorraine summed it up perfectly. "Sometimes, it takes a little storm to clear the air." And Colin smiled, replying quietly, "Indeed, even storms can be cleansing." The audience cheered. 2 British icons had clashed, reconciled, and reminded the world that respect, even after disagreement, is the most elegant act of all.